Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to Star Trek New Worlds. My name is Tony. Thank you, double digits already, as we are starting the stream today. Thank you for joining us live. If you are catching us live, if you are catching us on the replay, then thank you for taking the time. If it's your first time here and you're wondering, Kiska, what is going on with Star Trek New Worlds? It is a turn-based strategy game that we play here with you online through the magic of Vassal, which you will see in a moment, using the rule set of Federation Empire as published by the Emerald Design Bureau. So much to get to today. Exciting, delighting. It's going to be a little bit of a different episode today. We are catching up on two turns. Two, not one, not two. Two turns that we're going to be talking about today. Turn 95 and turn 96. Why is that important? Well, the Romulans have upended the table in turn 95 and 96, and they began what has been a two-prong attack, or two-turn attack so far. Red tide, you might say. So we'll be going over that and sort of all the tomfoolery, shenanigans, and craziness that is going on. So for a quick catch-up on the latest and greatest in turn 96 at this point, let's go to our galactic news. Look who's talking to! With the appearance of the Juggernauts attacking Klingon worlds in the Balkans, a new question has begun to arise in the minds of our readers. Are the Romulans controlling the Juggernauts? Last year there was speculation that the Juggernauts had somehow taken over Romulan High Command, but perhaps it is the other way round. Rumors now persist that it is the Romulans who are in charge of the terror machines from the center of the galaxy. If so, then all empires, friend and foe, should take action before it's too late. Red tide. The Romulan offensive against the Klingon Empire has continued at a furious pace. Several bases and supply points were destroyed, and several planets have changed hands. The edges of the conflict have seen planets taken and retaken many times. A deep strike task force even attempted an attack on the Klingon homeworld. Only the last-minute arrival of the Klingon Northern Reserves managed to stop the invaders before they could reach orbit of the very heart of the Klingon Empire. The Empire counter-strikes back. The Klingon Navy has not been passive during the ongoing war. In recent weeks, they have managed to push back Romulan forces that were precariously close to the homeworld and have retaken worlds near the free trade zone. The outcome of this war is anyone's guess at the moment. Leaping lizards! The Gorn have once again raced across Lyran space to attack Carnarvon forces. A large battle took place in Sector Uniform 8 between 2 Carnarvon and 4 Gorn attack fleets. While the Carnarvons were eventually pushed from the sector, reports of heavy damage on both sides leave experts wondering if either navy has enough force for sustained operations in the area. Meanwhile, Lyran Commonwealth forces can do nothing but look in horror as their former kingdom becomes a devastated no man's land. Down the rabbit hole. The Carnarvon Navy conducted a massive attack into Romulan space via the wormhole that connects their two empires. Witnesses at the World of Pack reported that every combat-capable ship in space over the Carnarvon homeworld, including no less than 6 dreadnoughts, poured into the rift in space, an all-out attempt to establish a foothold halfway across the galaxy in hostile territory. After a carnage-filled transition through the wormhole, the Carnarvons managed to destroy the defending starbase and drive off Romulan defenders. Everyone involved in the current fighting is now embroiled in a two-front war. Stay tuned to find out how all of this ends. And that, ladies and gentlemen, has been the Galactic News. Ooh, exciting and delighting. So much to go through today. So, because today is such a unique situation, we are going to start with the 95 map in certain sections and then pop back and forth, if that makes sense. I'll start on turn 96 so you can see the EP and where we are, sort of like where everything has settled out. And then we'll go back and forth to see where ships have gone and things have happened. Yes. Let me give you a couple of quick highlights before we dive in. As you saw or heard in the galactic news, there has been a lot of jockeying back and forth with various planets and resource or logistical points between different factions, between planets and bases being destroyed and so on. This last turn, as a reminder, the way these turns work is it is a phased turn system, meaning that every player goes and completes their turn, then their turn ends, and the next player begins. When you're in an alliance, which is what the case is right now, we have two alliances. The Four Powers Alliance of the Romulan, Carnarvon, ISC, and Klingons against the Tholians, Gorn, and Romulans. So these two alliances are fighting against each other. When you're in an alliance, you combine all your economic points to see where you fit on the initiative scale. The lower your total economic points, the earlier you go in initiative. So in this case, the Romulans, the Gorn, and the Tholians will all go effectively at the same time, resolve all their battles and turns, and then the Klingons, Carnarvon, ISC, and Remans will go. In this last turn, just in the Romulan, Tholian, Gorn half, the Klingons were involved in, well, I guess during the whole thing it was 20, but 17 different battles or combat scenarios, battle emails, just on the Romulan, Gorn, Tholian turn. 17 concurrent attacks. Whew. Oh my God. It was, the total number ended up being 20 when it was all said and done, but oh, goodness gracious, there was a lot of action going on. Before we get going, let's say hi to everybody in the chat. Starting us off with Daniel going, here we go. Eugene, the week's wait is about to end. How have the Juggies pulled strings this week to sow havoc and discontent across the universe? What turns will be revealed? So much action, so little time. Bill is in the house. Gorn, hey yo. Gorn here with the stompy boots on. Paul and Dell saying hey yo. George Fortnell is in the house. Big show has just started. Hi all. Eugene, hey George. Terry is in the house. Morning all. And You Can't Be Petty closing us out with the initial hellos. Hello everybody. I'm glad to make it to the stream again. All right, so here we are with magic number 13 as we dive into the very beginnings of our map. Let's roll in. Here we go. All right, ladies and gentlemen. So let's just keep track of where we are. As I'm juggling two maps, I got to make sure I'm on the right one. Okay, so this is turn 96. Let's start off with EP and fleet cap to see where we're at. All right, let's put that right there. Fleet cap right here. And away we go. The Carnarvons are now sitting pretty at a 51.5 at the end of our various forms of combat. The Gorn at a sweet 66. The ISC at 64. Klingons have suffered a beating, have lost over 10 EP overall with an 82.5 total economy after 2 turns of war. Brutal. However, still at the top of the economic ladder. The Remans are knocking on that door with 80.5 EP total. The Romulans at 57.5 and the Tholians at 77.5. Ooh. Fleet cap. All right. This will be interesting to see how the numbers shift. The Carnarvons sitting pretty at 108 total ships. They have 341 total attack factors, 478 defense with a lot of cripples. Their fleet cap is 558. The Gorn have 136 ships floating out in space with 362 attack factors, 553 defense with a fleet cap of 618. They're really getting up there. The ISC still over 100 with 114 total ships, 416 their total attack factors, 566 defense with a 568 fleet cap, so virtually no cripples in their fleet. Klingons are at 129 total ships, 502 total attack factors. Sorry, my producer's just in my ear. Is that a 500? 502? Jesus, Murphy. And 554 defense factors with 607 total fleet cap. So there's more than a couple cripples floating around there. The Paravians, Remans at 156 total ships with a 548 total attack factor, with 636 defense, fleet cap of 676. The Romulans have 88 ships out in the void with 285, my goodness, 285 attack factors, 411 defense with 506 in fleet cap. That's almost a 100-point difference. They sure have a lot of cripples floating around there. Tholians living large with 150 ships. They are knocking on the Reman's door with the total, or being the biggest navy in the galaxy with 150 ships out there. 400 total attack factor, 674 defense. My goodness gracious! Wow. Well, as you can see, things are really heating up, and the excitement is going back and forth with what is going on. Okay, so let's start off with the playground that is the Lyran Commonwealth. We have quite the dynamic dance. So this is turn 96. This is turn 95. Let's start with turn 95 and see where things started and where things ended out. So as you can see here, we'll take away the ships for just a second. The Carnarvon are in control of not only Shofak, but there's a little resource right here. They have supply to the Lyran Commonwealth and be able to get down here. You can see the Gorn have their YBS located on this resource right here. But sneeze, excuse me. Excuse me. All right, so we have a base right here and a YDK over the wormhole that goes back to their homeworld. So interesting to note the basically two bases they have in the area. Compare that to the Carnarvon with their one YDK here. I feel like I'm going to sneeze again. And two YBSs in the back. All right, let's bring the ships back. We can see here we've got Farstar's fleet, which is the Lyrans, just kind of participating, shall we say. Farstar's fleet is a commando destroyer and a M-era frigate. So nothing much going on there, just kind of... Whoa, ladies and gentlemen, a coffee has been fired. Look at me being negligent, not sharing with you what's going on when it comes to that. Cheers, big ears, to the fire of that coffee. That was the Juggernauts. Ladies and gentlemen, our GM is diligent about keeping me fully caffeinated and motivated to be able to give you the high-speed news updates of each turn. Right, so let me take a quick second and slide back into our screen here so you can be reminded on what's going on. After that coffee's been fired, you can see the green bar below my head has now progressed a third of the way across the bottom. 3 coffees is our goal for today. Can you keep me caffeinated all throughout? That's a challenge to you. If you don't feel like sending a coffee our way through either that QR code right beside me or that link down below, also in the chat, then you can just be like Paul and hit that subscribe button and help show us that you like what we do here when it comes to all things turn-based strategy and Star Trek combat. If this is something you like to do, you like to see, you like to watch, then please tickle that algorithm the right way. Hit the subscribe button, maybe the like if you don't mind, and just to let us know that you like what we do, like Paul did, Paul Burton. And like I say, QR code, you can head over there. We also have a Discord where we talk about and discuss and sort of exchange witty banter and stay up to date on the latest battle emails that are going on. It was late last night that Daniel was finishing up what was going on in the battle emails. And we do that all on our Discord channel. You can join us on our Discord through our top tier, Coffee and Discord tier, over at coffee.com/New Worlds, and you can say hello to us there. But I digress. Back to the map. All right. So as we saw here, we've got a couple of interesting combinations. We've got Emerald Fleet and Topaz Fleet for the Carnarvon. Let's pull those up. Topaz in the bottom. And what was it? Emerald fleet. Language, such a good thing. All right, so we've got Emerald Fleet and Topaz Fleet stacked in order there. So we've got a Hydran, former Hydran, Dreadnought, along with, 6 M-era, to be fair, GW era, cruisers with the heel nippers. We've got a total of 5 frigates, and then in the support fleet here, we've got 4 light cruisers, 3 frigates, and another dreadnought, and a couple of dagger teams doing their thing. The Gorn are not to be left alone. let's pull up their name fleets here. Put that over here. Excuse me. We can see we've got Hammer Fleet, Vengeance, and Home. So Hammer and Vengeance. Vengeance being the second row here. Dreadnought, 2 command cruisers, 3 light cruisers, 4 DDs, 4 Y frigates, and a commando cruiser, supported by Hammer Fleet with 2 M-era cruisers. And then there is also Home Fleet. Let's pull up Gorn Home. My mouth is really working well. YCC, DD, M, and a YDD. Interesting. Notice the difference between the M-era DD and the Y-era DD. It's only 1 attack factor. Interesting. Same defense factor, 1 difference in attack. Obviously, or M airships can move 6 operationally. Y airships can only move 4, so a little bit of a difference there. And then, of course, those fleets, plus they are supported nearby by a tug and a convoy. I expect a base to be built there very shortly. A YFF, a CLM, light cruiser, 2 M-era cruisers, 2 light cruisers, 2 M-era cruisers, and a total of 9 M-era destroyers. So quite the collection of ships there. Very nice, very nice. And then not too far back, we have some more goody goodness. Let's just put that over there. What is this? We have 2 destroyers, another light cruiser, another cruiser. 2 light cruisers. And it's being difficult with me. Here we are. So, and then mobile fleet also just right above there. You can see here the top row of our named fleets, a M cruiser, light cruiser, 2 DMs. Oh, another coffee has been fired. Oh my goodness gracious. It was the People's Front of Remus. My Klingons of another brother, another mother. There we are. My brothers from another mother. Here we are. Cheers, pointy ears. Ooh, yes. Well, you know, when you're in the shadows drinking that blood wine and looking at things going down, it's very much appreciated to keep us caffeinated in the light. All right. So that's what's going on here when we talk about the disposition of ships and who's who in the zoo. As you can see here, there are a couple other supplementary ships for the Carnivon, but we had a little bit of a tussle and an exchange. I believe it was all over. Terry will have to correct me here. Terry and Bill Smitty are the Carnivon and the Gorn, respectively, in this fight. So let's see what the turn 96 map reveals. So obviously you can see a shift in position here. We have all those fleets sitting on top of there with a whole bunch of DDMs, which is a total of 12, it looks like. 12 DDMs, 2 light cruisers, and a tug along with all those fleets. Let's pull up the fleets and see what happens. So name fleets, slide these over here. And home fleet, yes, and home fleet. Home fleet's still there. All right. So, and then the Carnivons, they've got Emerald and Topaz still there. So Carnivon, Emerald, and Carnivon Topaz. Ooh. All right, so let's take a look here. So after the what would have been a weighty exchange over this resource, we have a combination of mobile fleet, which is a CAM, CLM, and a scout. Vengeance fleet, which is Vengeance there? I feel like Vengeance is, yeah, Vengeance is there. A YDN, 2 command cruisers, 3 light cruisers, and a commando cruiser. And mobile fleet. No, Hammer fleet, sorry. Hammer's the one I'm missing. They have 2 M-era cruisers and a prime team. So that's what's sitting there along with these ships. So it'll be interesting to, if we were to put them all in one fleet box and then do sort of a compat analysis, it'd be interesting to see. But based on the fight, what can we see as to how many ships were crippled or damaged? If we slide these above my head, maybe we'll get a look. All right, so behave. We can see that there is a YFF, a CAM, a CLM, a YDD, 4 YDDs, excuse me, that have all been crippled. I'm curious if there were any ship losses. It's always funny with these battles because as a player, but not the GM, I don't see what everything, like all the different battles and the results of them. But it's good to see that a lot of cripples being done here. Interesting interaction. Yes. Okay. The Carnarvon, by contrast, also receiving more than a couple cripples. We've got a crippled cruiser, crippled light cruiser, 2 crippled bombardment cruisers, 2 M-era frigates, and another 2 light cruisers were crippled. What do they still have in the vicinity? Oh, it looks like another M-era FF there as well. They still have not 1 but 2 dreadnoughts. They still have 5 cruisers, 2 light cruisers, 4 light cruisers, excuse me, a light Y-era cruiser, still 2 fully capable drone bombardment cruisers, and 2 M-era frigates. And then they have a light cruiser, a light, a heavy cruiser, and looks like 5 frigates sitting there along with a Ruby fleet. What's in Ruby fleet is the question. Oh, bunch of cripples with 4 Y-era frigates. Okay, so what are we seeing here from the exchange between the Gorn and the Carnarvon? I don't know if I would call it an equal fight in the sense that they have bloodied each other up relatively equally. I mean, you can see here the Gorn seem to be using their Y-era ships as flak, or like a shield, shall we say, in absorbing damage. Obviously, there is at least 2 M-era ships that took a hit for the Gorn, and it would seem as though the Carnarvon got a little bit more bloodied in that exchange, but I don't know how many ships were destroyed because we don't see those. So it'd be curious to know how many ships were destroyed versus how many were crippled in that exchange. Because for example, if the Gorn were choosing to just blow up their Y-era ships as a way to get rid of that damage or bleed that damage, that would be one way to use your Y-era ships. Same thing with the Carnarvon. The Carnarvon crippling versus destroying, or the other way around. That's an interesting tactic, because in this game, when you have generated a certain amount of damage against your opponent has the option to distribute that damage over the ships that are fighting in the battle. So, for example, there are 2 stages. You can cripple a ship, and then you can destroy a ship. And so, as you can see here, for example, a cruiser for the Carnarvon is a 7-8 ship right here. 7 attack, 8 defense, fully operational and capable. When it's crippled, it's only a 4 attack, 4 defense. So what that means is it can take 8 points of damage, and then it will flip to being crippled, and then it can take another 4 points of damage, and then after it takes 4 points of damage, it's destroyed. So that's how that works. Now, like I say, you can distribute the damage across crippling a number of different ships versus, for example, taking 12 points of damage and just killing a cruiser, by example. But cruisers arguably are harder to build. It takes longer to build them, more money to make them, and so they're arguably more valuable. And of course, the M-era ships have more combat potency than a lot of the Y-era ships, relatively speaking, because of the tech difference and the weapons and all that kind of stuff. And they just tend to be a more valuable ship in the current sort of dynamics of the game. So how are those components of damage being distributed? We'll have to see. So very, very interesting to see this distribution of damage in this area. Not to be outdone, though, there is still one player in this dance that has not been participating, shall we say, and that is our good Reman friends. Now, our Reman friends, just as a reminder, have Triton Fleet sitting here on this little base, this YDK. And Triton Fleet, just as a quick little reminder, let's slide this over here. We have not 1, not 2, but 11 Maulers. 11 Maulers that are 10-9. Now, I had an interesting discussion with the GM last night, and I don't have Maulers, so I haven't really gone into this rule that much, but nor have I faced Maulers to look into this rule. However, he enlightened me that each Mauler has to have basically a non-Mauler escort. And if it doesn't have an escort, 2 other ships to be able to work with it, because Maulers are not designed to operate independently, then it doesn't work at full effectiveness. It's actually half its attack factor. So I was mistaken perhaps in saying that you could put forward a fleet of like 10 of these things and have 100 attack factor. So you could have 3 at any one go, and those 3 ships can have 30 attack factor plus whatever's supporting it. However, that being said, he still has 11 of these ships. And even if they're 50% their attack factor, there's still a 5 attack, 9 defense ship, which, as a reminder, is as good as the Carnarvon. A little bit better, actually. A little bit better than the Carnarvon Dreadnought, which is pretty impressive. They've also got an M-era cruiser, a couple crippled cruisers here too, a Y-era command cruiser, a couple of destroyers, both M, which is the K4. That's the M-era frigate. Excuse me, and they have that's the frigate, and then this is the improved frigate, the K4M. Am I right there? No, sorry, the K4 Plus is the destroyer. The K4M is the sort of amped up frigate. Silly me. Because the K4M is a lot like the E4M for the Klingons. And then they got a bunch of cripples, respectively. They also have an admiral in that fleet, which means they get a +1 on their command factor, and then a prime team as well. So all that to say that the Remans have not pulled the trigger on this little dance. And of course the Lyrans, my goodness, Far Stars and Home Fleet. Let's take a quick look at what the Lyrans have in their Home Fleet, because they haven't been idle. They've been building stuff. And Far Stars, Lyran, Far Stars. Now they can only support so much from a fleet perspective. So they've got a heavy dreadnought. This is what they had before. A command cruiser, 2 cruisers, 2 M-era light cruisers, 3 destroyers, and 4 M-era frigates. 5 if you include the one from Far Stars fleet. So, yeah, the Lyrans aren't being passive. They're certainly trying to hold off everybody, but the Gorn and the Carnarvon are tussling hard, shall we say. Interesting to note with the number of cripples that are on this YBS, the Y-era DD, when you flip it, is 2 points to repair. This YBS can only repair 2 points of damage per turn, which means that it's going to take forever to repair these ships. They'll have to move their way back to this YDK to repair, and then they'll have to move forward. If that tug, oh, look at that. They're building a base. Let's move those ships out of the way. They are building a base right here. So once this base is complete and ships are finished being repaired, they can be strat moved. The Y ships, anyway, can be strat moved up here, ready to go. And, of course, the M-era ships can just move normally up to here during their operational movement. So very interesting to see that sort of dynamic play out for the Gorn and the Carnarvon. So, man, so interesting. So interesting. Okay. So that's what's going on with the Gorn and the Reman in this little tussle factory that's going on right here. This is interesting. Okay, so we're just looking at the Balkans right here. So, interesting little dynamic. Let's look at turn. Let's get rid of these, and I will slide down and take a look here. Okay, so this is the Klingon area of the Balkans, and what you can see here is that Brachy fleet, which is this ridiculous. Where is it? Minor Empires. Brachy fleet is a cruiser, Mauler cruiser, with a light cruiser, 3 destroyers, and 5 frigates. That's not nothing. And it popped out of here, out of nowhere, and decided to work its way into my little network and pop stuff and blow stuff up. Very irritating, shall we say. Now, if we look at turn 96, this being turn 95, you'll notice that it's gone. So what ended up happening is they attacked this world, devastated it, and it would seem as though the juggernauts have disappeared, satiated with killing this planet. And I didn't catch this reference from before. I'm going to throw it out there. So when we initially discovered, or I initially sort of figured this out, this colony was called LV426. That's a reference to something. Let me know if you get it by the end of the live stream. LV426, and I'll give you a hint. When the GM let me know that they attacked that planet, which I sort of, like of all the places you could attack, that was probably one of the best. You attack that planet and you take it. He said, I guess they were just going after the eggs. I have no idea what that meant at the time. I'll let you figure that out and let me know by the end of the live stream. So the Juggernauts seemingly attacked and then withdrew from this little pocket of like this little planet. So they popped it and ran off. And so no more Juggernauts. Thank the Lord, says the Klingons. I'm very happy, thankful that that is the case. As we see here in the Balkans, we have some new guests residing at Hotel Kilo, Kilo 15 here. We've got Green, West, and the B-10 TAC-4 Invulnerable Fleet sitting here on top of this YDK. What happened, Tony? Weren't they in the free transit zone? We'll talk about that in a moment. What else is going on here in the Balkans? Well, we can see here that we've still got a number of ships on the YDK on this wormhole. We've got our tug in position, sort of, shall we say, line backing the hole. And then we've got a number of other support ships as well. Convoy has moved to be able to build some bases here on Golf 19. And, of course, Battle Group Blood is ready to jump into the fight. So plug in the hole, keeping the Tholians at bay should they decide to enter the fray, and so on and so forth. Generally speaking, all things are pretty quiet in the Balkans, other than that brief visit from our disruptive neighbors, the Juggernauts. All right. So tying that into what just happened, let's scroll down to the free transit zone, and you will notice that there is a Gorn fleet sitting on top of this wormhole. Well, the Gorn decided to pop in and say hi. They didn't want to be left out of the tussle and the muscle. They wanted to have a little fight. Now, from an in-game relation perspective, there's a little bit of a conflict around why this happened. The Gorn and the Klingons had originally come to an agreement around withdrawing the battleship from the FTZ, and that was part of the initial agreement. Now, I have a feeling this is these guys aren't supposed to be here. This might be a typo from the GM. Ships that just ended up sort of like randomly on the map. So yes, the Gorn attacked in this hex. So I'm going to share with you the battle formation that attacked me here. Oh my God. Okay. So let's pull this in here. I'm trying to do this on the fly, so hopefully this works for everybody. That's the script, by the way, for the Galaxy today. And let's just throw in this here. And you can see, so the Gorn forces, when they showed up to attack me, they had their YDN, 2 CAMs, which are 6 attack, 8 defense ships, 1 light cruiser, 1 crippled light cruiser, a commando cruiser, 3 YCCs, 15 M-era destroyers, 9 Y-era destroyers, 2 scouts, and 8 frigates. That's not nothing. That's quite a few ships. The Klingons had in that hex the battleship, the B-4B. Yeah. A tug that had been crippled due to a prime team mission. 4 D7Ms, 4 D6Ms, 1 D6EM, which is a survey ship with EW, and it's a 6 attack, 7 defense ship. An F5M, which is a 4-4. A F5SM, which is just a scout. And then an E4M. What are your orders? So we had this little tussle back and forth. And the end results of this fight were... Where is the result? I'm looking for... There we are. Okay. I know. Dead air is never fun, so to speak. Here, actually, I will... There we go. Okay. All right. So if I could put this side by side, I would. It's not going to let me right off the bat here, so let's just throw this in here. Okay. Battle results. So as we said, Gorn forces versus the Klingon forces, and this was the fight. As a result, the cripples and kills were as follows. I crippled 2 of his CAMs, 1 of his CLMs, his commando cruiser, the Com-M. I killed a YDD, crippled 4 of his DDMs, destroyed another YDD, so 2 YDDs destroyed. Crippled 8 of his YDDs, destroyed another YFF, and crippled 2 other YFFs. So a lot of damage done. But he had a lot of ships to be able to, like we talked about earlier, he had a lot of ships to distribute damage to, pull them out of the battle line, and replace them with fresh ships. So it was expected that there would be more cripples than kills in this example. The Klingons, on the other hand, crippled a D7, destroyed a D6, crippled 3 D6Ms, and crippled 3 F5Ms. We retreated through the wormhole, the Klingons, and they were successful in their pursuit, which is how they destroyed this D6M, those little sneaky buggers. So yeah, as an overall exchange, the cripples versus kills ratio, I was pretty happy with overall. But let's see what's there right now. We have 4th and new fleet, so we'll take Gorn 4th and Gorn. My eyes are failing me. All right, so here's new. We'll put this up here. New and 4th. So you can see here are many of the cripples. You've got 2 crippled CAM, CLM, CLM, DDM. We've got, what is that? 9, 10, 11 DDMs still remaining, 2 scouts, 3 command cruisers, 8 crippled DDs, YDDs that is, 2 crippled frigates, and 4 non-crippled frigates. So that's looking pretty good overall, right? Like that's not bad. In close vicinity, they have interesting. So I'm seeing this map for the first time. I just got it this morning. I would have expected a retrograde of these ships. I am surprised that they did not. Interesting. Huh. So we have a YDK, no fleet there. It's open season on this YDK. Fair. And notice they have another YDK here as well, so they've sort of set up the logistics to be able to do some very effective, repair capacity to be able to wash ships into the front here. But yeah, that's sort of the distribution. On the Klingon side, let's pull up. We'll pull up Klingon. Where are we here? So here's the invulnerable battle group. We've got what was it, West Fleet and Green Fleet, I believe. So there's come back here, West and Green. Look at all those cripples. Damn. So right now we have 3 D6Ms, 2 F5Ms, 2 D7s remaining, D6EM, B4B, and then there's a bunch of ships sitting here, random, so to speak. F5C, 1, 2, 3, F5Ms, and E4M, and then those fleets. So, not nothing, but not crazy amounts of stuff. Sitting here on this wormhole, plugging the hole, so to speak. So very interesting to see how this is like coming out in the wash. So, yeah, exciting. So that was the Gorn battle was one of the 17 emails I received during their phase of the turn. That was the battle that occurred. So again, Balkans, not too much going on. We talked about the Lyran pocket here, and let's go down to the other sort of action-oriented area, which is the free transit zone. So I'll move the free transit zone here as well. So prior to the turn, you can see what's sort of in this vicinity. You've got First Legion, a bunch of stuff here, some bases, some cripples, some rando Klingon ships just kind of floating in space, causing a havoc. We've got Expeditionary Fleet and 4th Legion here ready to pounce on the wormhole. And then, of course, as we saw, we had the new fleet and 4th Fleet from the Gorn jump on the wormhole and take them out. So we saw that happen. Excuse me. Now that we've flipped the script, what we've noticed is that 2 key bases have been destroyed. There was a base in Victor 37, that was destroyed, and Tango 38. These two bases were, shall we say, Han Solo'd into an early retirement. Yes, I'm a big fan of my Orions, as they have been effectively used against me. So if you're gonna play don't hate the player, hate the game. So I'll just play the game instead, and we'll see how that goes. So we've popped a couple bases. The Carnarvon have come through and blown out this. Interesting to see what's in Expeditionary and Fourth Fleet. These are the remnants of that assault. So Expeditionary and Fourth. Let's take a look. Romulans, 4th Legion, right? 4th Legion, yep. Sorry, that's 3rd, excuse me. 4th Star Legion, here we are. Ooh, a lot of cripples. And Expeditionary, right? Yeah. Romulan Expeditionary? Yep, okay. So we can see here, we have 4 crippled Snipe Bs, 4 crippled Snipe As, a crippled War Eagle, but 2 War Eagles, 2 Queen Eagles, a tug, and a survey ship still fully operational. Interesting. Notice the Vulture sitting here ready to pounce as well. And then we've got Diamond, Home, and Wolfpack. Let's take a look at what the Carnarvons have in Diamond. Here we go. Diamond. We'll put this guy over here. Diamond, Home, and Wolfpack. So home. Carnarvon, Home Fleet. There we are. Carnarvon, Wolfpack. There we are. Okay. So based on what we have here, not a lot of cripples. Very interesting. Probably because they all retroed. So we have a total of 9 drone bombardment cruisers. These guys are vicious, not only because they can just sit in the back row and literally lob missiles at you, which is incredibly frustrating, but they're also 4/5 ships, meaning they are as effective as the Snipe Bs in combat. And the Snipe Bs for the Romulans are their like uber frigate. They are essentially a light cruiser. They're very, very good. So a lot of those those drone bombardment cruisers, a bunch of, oh geez, hold on, there's 9 of them there, 2 in this fleet, bringing the total to 11. So 11 drone bombardment cruisers. We have remaining 5 dreadnoughts, a command cruiser, 2 cruisers, number of 5 drone bombardment destroyers, another destroyer, another command cruiser, so 2 command cruisers, 2 cruisers, and then a M-era cruiser as well. So still, once it's all said and done, quite a significant number of ships, and of course a tug. So if they were able to build a base there, which is what I would do, if they were able to build a base there, booyah. Booyah, baby. Very interesting to see how this is going to go. This is such an interesting and dynamic place, right? Like we heard in the Galaxy Today discussion, everyone's fighting these 2 front wars. So like right now the Gorn have to worry about, of course, what's going on in the north, which to be fair, they're handling themselves quite respectively up there. Like it's a very tight exchange between the Carnarvon and the Gorn. Here, it's interesting because all of these players now have more than one person to think about. Whereas the Gorn and the Carnarvon are essentially just worried about themselves, not too worried about the Lyrans, and the Remans seem to be holding back. Here, let's say, for example, if I'm the Gorn, I'm looking at this scenario and I'm like, oh, the Carnarvon, who I'm already fighting with, are now within striking distance of at least 2 of my bases. The bases I just spent all this money sort of investing to be able to repair stuff. Also, a supply point, which is pretty awesome for the Carnarvon to grab. So they could take that. The Gorn are sitting on this wormhole, and they got to worry with all those cripples. What are they going to do with them? There's still a very potent fleet on the other end of that wormhole that could come through and poke and prod now that the Juggernauts are gone, to deal with them. The Romulans have to think about that as well. I mean, the Carnarvon obviously have declared war against the Romulans and attack them. They're also, of course, dealing with me on the north and the south. We'll get to that in a moment. But there's like each one of these folks, the Gorn have to think about both the Klingon and the Carnarvon. The Romulans have to think about both. How are they going to coordinate, if any? Like it's such a such an interesting dynamic. And for both of these factions, Gorn and Romulan, these battles are happening on their home turf. Granted, Klingons have got some home turf battles going on as well, but this is happening on their home turf, so they have to really sort of think about it. And for the Romulans specifically, they just took a huge beating. They lost 3 bases, like 2 bases and a YDK in this neck of the woods, and they got a new sort of opponent who's very potent and powerful in that area. So there's just a whole bunch of interesting stuff going on here, and yeah, it's pretty nutty. But exciting, very exciting. What do we have sort of in the area? We've got a couple of crippled ships. We've got a Snipe Bs, QEM, and a YSN. Up here, we've got First Legion. Let's take a look at what Romulan First Legion's going on. Oh, a bunch of cripples. So 2 Snipe Bs, a Snipe, and a War Eagle crippled. We have a Scout, QEM, KEM, and another Snipe, Tug, and Wire Tug that are crippled. Whew. Okay. We've got the Wire Warbird, the prime team up here, attacking, or not attacking, defending their YDK. Yeah, so interesting distribution of ships. We've got the Falcon here, which is a Mauler, by the way. So a Mauler, 7 attack Mauler with a couple of Snipe Bs. I have a feeling they were probably going to this area, but now they're probably not as a little bit constrained in that. And then, of course, we got the Vulture getting ready to participate in whatever was going on up here. Also to note, and I'll slide the thing over here. This planet in Charlie 35 was the unceremonious victim of an attack. Bastards. The Romulans attacked me with First Legion, took the planet, and obviously retroed a bunch of ships. I think they left just the King Eagle to hold the planet. And due to some tricky shenanigans, the Klingons came back with a vengeance and attacked the planet. The Romulans, thinking that discretion was the better side of valor, decided to back away from that fight. Good for them. And the Klingons retook that planet, although the Romulans also did a deep strike against my base that was in this location right here, so there is no more base there. Annoying, but nonetheless, that's the way that goes. So that was a little irritating, shall we say. Now, when it comes to all the war stuff, and really this part of the live stream is really just our, shall we say, our war coverage, and then we'll get back to the round the clock evaluation. Here comes the boom, as Adam Sandler would say. Ooh, okay. Let's go to turn 96 first so you can see how things started. So at the end of turn 96, the Romulans had executed a devastating concurrent wave of attacks. They had, as you can see here, taken the planet of V, which was, I believe, not undefended. Maybe it was undefended. It was undefended, and they took that planet. They attacked Nippon and initially took Nippon, but then I had a fleet moving there. They moved there and took it back, forcing this Vulture and War Eagle to retreat from that hex. As you can see, the way that these ships were distributed, they have prevented isolation of supply to the planet V, because each one of these non-crippled ships has the ability to influence one hex around it for the purposes of supply. If you have 2 opposing factions with an overlapping hex, then you can still draw supply through that hex. So as you can see here, this fleet here and this fleet here are allowing a straight line from the BB45 YDK all the way up to V. 1, 2, 3, 4, although it's only 4 hexes worth of supply. But nonetheless, they have a straight line to V without any issues or problems. The Snipe B and some of these other ships are actually kind of out of supply, unless they're being provided with an extended supply from the convoy. 1, 2, 3, 4. But nonetheless, there's some supply constraints, shall we say, here in this area. The big one was that the Romulans attacked my base here in Echo 46, here in Echo 48, the base here in Delta 46, and then there was a ship that was here that was attacked in Delta 48. So they attacked all this stuff and blew out a whole bunch of bases, caused all sorts of problems. Now, let's go to turn 96. And those problems just get worse. So as you can see here, They sent a little sneaky bugger from here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and took Fledermaus. Very upset about that. So they took and devastated that planet, those little sneaky buggers. So they took that, and they have devastated basically all my base infrastructure. They have devastated all my base infrastructure in this area. As you can see, there is a void here, and they've finished off all the bases that were along the border. So there is a serious problem. However, as you can see, I still hold Foxtrot 44, which is Nippon, which is a point of supply, and as long as those ships stay there, they are in supply. So it's excellent from that perspective. So they're there, doing great. We can see that, like I say, base is destroyed. There was a base here in Juliet 46 that was popped, although, of course, we have ships here ready to tango. In the news, you heard that Romulans did a deep strike on my homeworld, and they did. Now, what I ended up, the sneaky thing that I had was I used a reserve fleet. What is a reserve fleet? A reserve fleet, not only is it a tech that you have to research within this game, but it is a countering capability that you can use in your game. As we discussed earlier, and I'll slide to this screen to talk about it. As we discussed earlier, this is a turn-based player-phased progression, meaning that there is one player that goes and then the next player that goes, and there is a sequence of actions that occur in each player's turn. So when I finish my turn, at the end of my turn, I establish a reserve fleet. A reserve fleet is a collection of ships that did not use their operational movement during my turn, and it is a number of ships equal to the command factor of the lead command ship in that reserve fleet. So, for example, in my reserve fleet, I had a battle tug with 2 battle pods. Those battle pods provide +2 attack each. So I have a 7-8 attack ship. So it's a 7 attack, 8 defense ship, which is the TGAM. The TGAM then gets 2 battle pods. It can carry 2 battle pods. Each battle pod giving it a +2 attack and defense factor, which takes the 7-8 up to an 11-12 ship. Pretty potent, right? And those battle pods provide also a +2 command factor up to a maximum of 10. So those command factors go from 8, which is the normal command factor for a tug, up to 10. So it's a 10 command factor, 11 attack, 12 defense ship, and booyah. So that battle tug, wonderful that it is, because it's still a tug, can go out and do wonderful things. It was sitting on the base on the other side of that wormhole in the Balkans. Don't remember which one that is? Let me show you. It is, as I slide back over here, it was this wormhole right here, the Tango wormhole. They were sitting there on Foxtrot 18, and where did they go? They went through this wormhole. They have 6 operational movement, and so going through the wormhole is 1 hex, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. They are within 6 hexes of the homeworld. And when we do our turns, you write your, shall we say, we call them contingency orders or instructions, so that if this happens, then this will occur, and so on and so forth. If you were playing this in real time, then the player who has the reserve fleet could then watch what's happening on the map and then choose during their phase of reserve movement to use that reserve fleet to move in the way that they want to move. So the sequence of play here is that the other player, meaning after I've finished my turn and I've assigned my reserve fleet, which was that fleet, the other player, in this case the Romulan, will move all his counters and finish his operational movement phase. At the end of his operational movement phase, before battle begins, I have the reserve movement phase where I can move my reserve counter fleets. He moved a ship or a fleet of ships onto my homeworld to attack it. Great opportunity. So I sent my reserve fleet through the wormhole to the homeworld to defend the homeworld. I mean, really, I had to. Now, so that's how reserve movement was used. There was the tug with a 10 command factor, meaning a total of 11 ships could move, and those 11 ships moved to defend the homeworld as a result. Now, Romulans have cloak, and because they have cloak, normally they can avoid approach battles when they attack. When you're attacking a capital system, that approach battle is very important for the defender. So the Romulans were potentially going to bypass it. However, the Romulans made a slight mistake. They hired a Han Solo, an Orion pirate, to help them in the attack. Very reasonable thing to do. Except that the Orion didn't have and doesn't have a cloak. So when the Orion ship was attacking, they had to offer an approach battle, which I accepted, and then fought the approach battle. And in the 3 rounds of the approach battle, my fleet was able to completely eliminate the Romulan fleet and cripple the pirate as it retreated. So that approach battle was clutch. If it hadn't been the approach battle, then I would have been forced to do the capital assault mechanics, which effectively means that I take the entire fleet that I'm defending the homeworld or the home system with, I divide it into 2 groups. The first group is my floater fleet, and that can go anywhere, do anything I want. The second fleet has to be then divided as I want among the 3 planets in my capital system, and they're fixed in position. And if they were to retreat from any of their battles over any of the planets they're on, they have to leave the system completely. So I can put them all on one planet, or I can distribute them evenly or mix and match however I want across the 3 planets. But once they're in place, they're stuck. And then after that's done, the attacker can decide how and where he wants to attack. So he can attack, the most vulnerable planet first, and then the second and the third, and so on and so forth. He can attack in any way that he wants. He can go planet to planet to planet as he wishes. The attacker has a lot of flexibility in that regard. Then my floater fleet can move to attack or move to defend wherever he attacks. One thing that isn't mentioned, or that I forgot to mention, is that the attacker can also attack concurrently, meaning if I'm the attacker, I can attack all 3 planets at the same time. And then the floater fleet has to decide where it wants to go. So if you have enough ships and you attack a home system, you can attack with 3 different groups of ships that are going to overwhelm the defenses of the defender, and you could theoretically devastate 2 out of 3 planets and make the third like a really close fight, let's say. But either way, there's more to discuss there, certainly. But regardless, if you're defending your home system, it can be very, very much a difficult thing to do. And you want to avoid a capital defense at all costs if you can. Hence why that approach battle was so critical. And if we hadn't had that approach battle, I think I still would have won, but I would have suffered more casualties in the process. So interesting to see how that worked. All right. So yeah, exciting, eh? Okay, so let's take a look at this this ridiculousness here. So this is where we're at now after the end of all the battles that have occurred. Again, 17 different combats against me. I did 3 myself. And I took my wonderful little fleet here, and attacked this fleet, basically, the Tug, the YFB, the War Eagle, and the Vulture. I attacked them in Gulf 47. He withdrew half the ships before the battle, which you can do, and then he cloaked the rest in a retreat. So there's a dice roll to be able to retreat using cloak, and he successfully got all his ships out. It was incredibly annoying because it just makes it hard to nail down the Romulans for any particular fight. So now that that's all said and done, what do we have? We have essentially a new Romulan front that's been established along here. We've got what do we got? We got the Falcon, which is their Mauler. Tug, which is the YFB, 5 Snipe Bs, a Pelican Eagle, and all that. We've got 2 King Eagles sitting here on this resource. We've got the Vulture, the War Eagle, the Tug, and the Y-Tug, a Convoy, a Snipe B that's crippled, and 2 Snipe Bs that are crippled in 8th Legion. Let's take a look at what's in 8th Legion. I feel like it's not that much, but let's see. So 8th Legion is this one right here. 10, 9, 8. Crippled War Eagle, crippled Snipe B. So a lot of crippled ships. We have here on the YDK, 3rd Legion, Romulan 3rd Legion. And that is 4 KEMs and a War Eagle. So that's good. So he's got, he's got big ships, cruisers and above in this area. He's got a good number of them. Oh, and let's not forget about V with a crippled Snipe B and a King Eagle ready to go, yo. That's right. Bring it. So, yeah, these guys are ready to rock and cause problems for sure. Interesting. So how is this all going to pan out? How is this all going to paint? There's all sorts of interesting things that are going to occur. And how are the Romulans going to or not going to be able to sort of fix and repair their ships and move things forward? It's going to be very interesting. The Romulans are now facing they were facing a two-front assault anyway. Me sort of in the north and that wormhole. And of course, they're pushed to get to my homeworld. There's the Carnivons now coming through, so it's another opponent. The Gorn are helping them, though, so that's a really good thing for them. So we've got this sort of four-way kerfuffle between the Gorn, the Carnivon, the Romulans, the Klingons. Interesting go. And certainly the first two turns of this assault from the Romulan side were A, incredibly effective, and B, you can see here that I think it would be fair to say we've sort of reached the edge of how far they can go initially. There's obviously the grind that will now occur, but that initial two-turn attack, it's incredibly effective and have really kicked the snot out of me. So, yeah, interesting. Okay, let's take a quick second and talk to or check in with the chat. All right, everybody, let's dive in and see what kind of things you're saying. Let's pick up from the first coffee, which is when Daniel, our GM, fired a caffeinated goodness. I'm feeling a little parched. Let me take a sip. Oh, yeah. Oh, and we're going to talk about prime teams. I got to remember to talk about prime teams. Okay, so Bill says Uniform 8. Oh, I'm looking at the map. Uniform 8. What is he talking about? Uniform 8. Tango Uniform 8. Okay, so Uniform 8 is where this battle occurred, and okay, so that's the big battle. Yes, I threw Y ships out as ablative armor. He says Gorn combined force is U8 is 133 to 201. So Paul did the calculation there. So right now, what's in U8 is 133 attack, 201 defense. Wow. Look at the Lyran homeworld. Aliens, game over, dude. Game over. Thank the Emperor, Tony. Question mark. Yes. The Emperor. The Emperor is good. Tony rematerialized the T-36 wormhole, violating the treaties, so fines and penalties were assessed. Yes. Yeah. Okay. Sad that we missed a whole week of Galaxy today. So true. Terry says, yes, but real life is an issue sometimes. Barbara, ready to go, finger on the button. Barbara, ready to go, finger on the button. Not sure what that's all about, but exciting and delighting. So far, we've done the discussion of the battles and sort of what's going on or what has been going on. Let's talk about prime teams real quick. So in this game, prime teams have been used in a number of ways. In the rule set for Federation Empire, you can identify, there's a list of missions that prime teams can go on. In order to execute a prime team mission, there's a couple of constraints. One, you have to pay 2 EP per prime team mission for your prime team mission, for your prime teams to go on a mission. So for the Klingons, it's the Dagger team, and we have slightly different names for all the different prime teams depending on the faction, but basically any prime team you have 2 EP, they can go on these missions. There are different kinds of missions. We have a spreadsheet that sort of lays it out for us for a quick reference guide, but they're all laid out in the rules. They include things like sabotaging bases, crippling ships, capturing ships, disrupting supply, gathering intelligence, planting intelligence, sabotaging, I think I said sabotaging bases, stealing EPs, finding out where another faction is on the tech tree on a particular tech, various other things like that. And usually the issues around how and when those missions can be done is based on supply, meaning that a faction has to have, at the very least, in most cases, 1.5 has to have the target of the attack within 1.5 hexes of their supply. So, for example, if you've got supply 4, they have to be within 6 hexes of your nearest supply point in order to be able to execute that prime team mission, by example. That's not the case for every prime team mission. There are different prime team missions that have other constraints, like, for example, half range or just supply range or various other things like that. And why is that the case? Like, why is there a limitation on supply? Well, from a practical perspective, your nefarious, backhanded supply channels only go so far into enemy territory. Fair, right? You can only smuggle so far. And so you can only sort of reach so deep into an enemy's territory. From a game mechanics perspective, it's limiting in the sense that you can't do something that we've done in this game, which is arguably game breaking or borderline game breaking, which is how we use the Orion Pirates. So in previous games, Orion Pirates had that same constraint around supply, in the sense that Orion Pirates would only operate based on your supply and the constraints around your ability to operate your own organic or domestic teams to be able to perform against the enemy unit. In this particular campaign, we've given Orions carte blanche, meaning as long as you have supply to the enemy's supply grid or their empire, then you can use your Orions throughout their entire empire. Which means things like the Romulans have executed against me, by example, are these deep strikes against bases, by example, that are like light years away. Like, how can you reach that far? But and we saw that, for example, with the Hydrons. The Hydrons got brutalized with deep strike Orion teams popping bases. They also did the same thing against the ISC and the Remans as well. But nonetheless, there was this weird dynamic where you can reach as far into the back of another faction's territory, regardless of your supply to it, only as long as you have access to an Orion Pirate Syndicate that you can execute those missions. So it is what it is. For the purposes of this campaign, obviously that is the standard or the precedent we've set, so we're going to carry that on. But I can guarantee you, after talking with the GM, that will not be the way Orions happen in the future, because it's a very imbalanced way of executing Orions. So that being said, how do Orions work in this game in sort of tandem with the prime team thing? So as I talked about with regards to supply, as long as you have supply to an Orion base and, of course, to the opposing faction that you want to execute against, then you can use Orion missions. You can deploy as many Orion ships as your economy divided by 10. So if you have an economy of 82.5, by example, you can deploy 8 different Orion missions. What that means is you could hire 8 Orion ships. You could hire 8 Orion prime teams. You could hire 2 Orion prime teams and 6 Orion ships, and so on and so forth. The problem is there are 2 constraints on that. One, prime team missions cost twice as expensive. So it's 4 EP for a prime team mission with an Orion versus 2 for your own. The advantage is, of course, those Orion prime team missions can go deep, so it's worth the price. The ship attacks also, they go deep, so it's worth the attack. And these Orion Pirates, there's a limit on what ships you can buy. There's only a certain number of CAMs, CRMs, SALMs, and so on and so forth. So all the different ship types, there's a limit on how many you can buy. Some of them, there is virtually no limit, because, I mean, I suppose if you had like 200 EP, there might be a constraint there, but most of us don't have the economic potential to even buy out the total fleet, if you know what I mean. So it depends on the ship type, and each ship type has a different cost. So, for example, and I'm just trying to pull up the spreadsheet for myself. For example, the CAM, which is a ship for the Orion. So their cruiser is a 8 attack, 7 defense ship, by example. Now, if I were to contract that ship, and let me pull in, and I will zoom this out. so you can see it. And let's slide over here. So here's the spreadsheet, for example, on the operations tab. And so you can see here in the Orion mercenaries on the top right above my head, we've got in the category of M ships, you've got a certain cost associated with different kinds of ships. So you can see the CAM there is 2 EP. There's only one of those that you can purchase or contract at a time. There's also the SALM, thank you, at 1.5 EP. The Tug, which is 1.5, CRM 1.5, and so on and so forth. So you can buy out these different ships and contract them to do various different things, and depending on the tech level of them of the Orion pirates, obviously you can see there's W, Y, M, and GW ships that you can contract, but they can all do slightly different things. So that gives you a sense of how we can employ Orion pirates, and generally speaking, Orion pirates will never maintain a fight once they're crippled. If you incorporate an Orion ship into your battle force, like the Romulans did when they were fighting during that capital assault, they never take damage. So in the sense of you cannot allocate damage to them. However, if all your ships are destroyed and there's still damage to be distributed, they'll take some damage because they're not hiding behind anybody, you might say. But as soon as an Orion ship is crippled in combat, it retreats, meaning that if you had, let's say, 2 ships, and that's another constraint, excuse me, you can only ever have 2 Orion units operating in the same hex at any one time. 1 prime team, 1 ship. You can't do 2 prime teams on the same, running the same mission in the same hex. That's a no-no. But 2 ships in the same hex, by example. So let's say you had a Tug and a CAM and a CRM. So one has an 8 attack, 7 defense. The other one has, I think, a 6 attack, 5 defense, or something along those lines. I'll have to find a CRM here on the board. 6, 5, yeah. So 6 attack, 5 defense. So 8, 7, 6, 5. So they're attacking a ship, for example. As soon as one of those ships takes crippling damage, it will retreat, and the other one will keep fighting until it takes crippling damage, and then it will retreat. So that means, for example, it's always really dicey whether you could even possibly pop a YBS. The Klingons have been very successful at this, but I would argue that's really lucky. Like, the Klingons have been really lucky, or the Romulans have been very unlucky. Pick your choice. Throw a ship in there, totally changes the calculus. You put them in a fight with another ship. As long as if it's small scale combat, the Orions have a really good chance, especially if there's 2 of them against 1, of crippling or destroying that ship. If it's small scale combat and there's more than 1 ship involved, the Orions will probably force that other ship to retreat or take damage. But generally speaking, like I say, they won't take any damage in a full on brawl. So, it's interesting as far as how we use Orion pirates, how we use prime teams, and how they sort of mix and match in the game. As you have seen, the Romulans use them to great effect against me, crippling various ships that I have, destroying bases and various other things, disrupting things that I was doing as a precursor to their all-out attack. I've used them against the Romulans and the Gorn. The Gorn have used them against me. So there's a lot of exchange here as far as where they can go and what they can do with their various attacks. So it is what it is. Just be conscious that Orions cost a lot to use. So unless you have the disposable income in a game to be able to use them, it can sometimes the cost benefit may not really be there, if you know what I'm saying. So with that said, why, yes, it's as if you like Satan. What is going on here? Something exciting, weird is happening in the chat. Let's check in here. All right. So what is this? What? Okay. So Terry Mullins, big question mark about the Barbara. I get it. Dana Carey. Is that supposed to be Dana Carvey or Mariah Carey? I'm not sure. Who? What? Dana Carvey doing George Bush, maybe. Is that what we're talking about? Okay. Dana Carvey, SNL, is what we're trying to say, not Carey. There is no Dana Carey. You can't be petty is laughing his head off. Bill says, CAMs 3, CRMs 2. I'm not sure what that is. 1 tip. I only used Orions this turn in attacks against players, Bill says. Lies. Dana Carvey. Thank you. There we are. All right. So let's do a quick round the clock. We'll start with the Remans. We will work our way through the Carnivons and do sort of like an overall assessment of where they're at and how they're doing. And then we'll round out with any questions that you might have about the current state of war, and we'll do a quick analysis of where we're at in this stage of the game. I have some insights on sort of what this looks like over the course of this year and sort of when the end of the game is, so stay tuned for that. All right, let's slide into the map. All right, we're back up north taking a look at the Remans. So as we were talking about before, the Remans are very well positioned to be able to move into the Lyran Commonwealth. Of course, there seems to be a little bit of activity going on there. We'll have to wait to see what happens with them and how that gets resolved as we go forward. But as of right now, things are looking good, and certainly the Remans are in the best position of the, shall we say, the four of them. The Lyrans, the Gorn, the Carnivon, and the Remans. But the Carnivons and the Gorn are bashing against each other, doing a great job of blooding each other's noses and having a wonderful time doing it. As we slide down, we can see there is continued exploration happening along this border. The biggest sort of constraint for the Remans is supply. So how they are going to deal with that supply constraint and sort of build out bases and so on. It'll be interesting to see how that goes because, of course, with war happening across the galaxy, priorities shift and spending changes. We can see the ISC are preparing for a siege upon the battle fleet and the Kzinti in the north of their territory. Let's take a look here. We've got Integer Fleet and Judgment Fleet. Let's take a look here. Integer, Judgment. Okay. ISC, named echelons. All right, so we got where are you? What is it? Oh, Integrity, excuse me. CAM and three frigates in Integrity Fleet with a YFF supporting. Judgment Fleet, it's got to be good, right? Come on now. Where's Judgment? Judgment is a YCC and 4 YCLs. What's in the battle fleet for the Kzinti? Because it's got to be good. Let's take a look here. Battle fleet. Yeah. Okay. Well, certainly it's going to take a little bit more than that to be able to attack the Kzinti planet because they have we talked about battle tugs. Look at that. They've got an 8-8. So a tug with 2 battle pods, got a total of 10 command factor. But it's an 8-8 ship. You've got 2 M-era CAs with 7 apiece, 2 M-era CLMs, so they are 4 6s. You've got a total of 12 M-era frigates, which are, that's going to be challenging to deal with. You've got 3 drone frigates, so 4 drone factors to be able to launch at somebody, and then a YDN. So this is not nothing, and of course they still have 24 attack factors in PGBs there, so 8 PGBs and a tug and a YDK. So I would argue you're going to need more ships than Judgment and Integrity as of right now. But I'm sure, Paul, let's be real here, guys. There's only one, arguably two, there's one faction, 2 players who have destroyed or taken out another player. The Remans and the ISC are the only folks that have actively taken out another player. If there's a belt, a title, a medal to wear around your neck, they have it. None of us do. So we can just sit back, relax, and observe experts in action because that's what the ISC and the Remans are at this point. They are our subject matter experts. They're the only ones that have sealed the deal, done the deed, and, delivered the results. So as far as the ISC figuring out how they want to, if they want to attack Furball here with the battle fleet, I will leave it up to their very capable hands. But understandably, they are preparing, shall we say, rallying forces in the area. And then when they're ready, and only when they're ready, will they launch that attack. As we scroll down, we can still see that there is the uniform wormhole and then this other mystery wormhole here that has no destination as of yet. We have Truth and Third Fleet finishing up that YDK, and Truth Fleet, Truth, Provider, Order. Wow. Okay, let's take a quick look at the ISC, again, named echelons. So Truth on the bottom here. We've got our DN, 2Y or 1 YCC CA, 6 CLs, and a scout. Yes, we're building scouts. I love it. I love it. We've got provider and order. So Providence Fleet is a CC, 3 CLs. How many DDs? 5 DDs in a marshal team. And then, what was it? Order? Order Fleet is a CA, another 4 CLs, and so on. So these guys are doing just fine. They are blocking, without a doubt, their wormhole, and I don't see the Tholians coming through that wormhole anytime soon. We've got a number of fleets sort of floating around, and I would bet dollars to donuts the ISC are still sort of preparing themselves for the late stage of the game when it comes to the total war that may be coming. That's where they are, and that's what they're doing. As we scroll down to the Carnivon, a couple of interesting things. The Carnivon had a Raider in the background here and the Space Lens. So let's just slide. This is turn 95. So you can see here a large auxiliary cruiser and then the Space Lens. We switch to now. Well, we got a couple cripple ships. Looks like that large auxiliary cruiser was pew-pew taken care of, and the Space Lens has disappeared. I asked this question to our glorious GM, and he said, on the random monster table, if we are familiar with our tabletop tables, there is a very remote option that monsters just poof, disappear. Horseshoe up somebody's butt, because that just happened to happen here, and the Space Lens is one of the harder monsters in this game, as was experienced by the Hydrons during their war. So, thank goodness gracious me, that Space Lens decided to bugger off, but let's not count our chickens before they're hatched, because you never know what might be coming down the pipe. I mean, like we said, or like I was saying, I was thinking things were looking really good in the Balkans, and all of a sudden I had this Juggernaut fleet pop in and cause all sorts of issues. So, you know what I'm saying? It's kind of dicey that way. So interesting and exciting, all things at once. So the Carnivon, obviously you can see there's a stack of cripples here. I would argue this is the consequence of their battle through the wormhole, retrograding everybody through the wormhole to repair and recuperate at their homeworld. You can see they have 3 YFFs, a total of 1, 2, 3 MR frigates, 2 YCAs, 3 YCAs, a light cruiser, MR light cruiser, and a YDN ready for repair. Well, the commercial convoy will show up on their planet, give them a little extra EP boost to be able to help with that repair work and help our Carnivon allies along the way. Excellent. We take a quick look at the back end of the Klingon Empire. Things are looking reasonably decent. We've got a collection of ships, things in various places. Obviously, the big news for the Klingon Empire is the, shall we say, cranial caving punch that the Romulans have delivered into the face of the Klingons. Certainly, we're going to be disfigured for a good length of time, but every plane crash you can walk away from is a good one. So this would be something that, as of right now, we're walking away from, and we're going to figure out a way to be able to, hopefully, knock on wood, turn the tables and the tide. So as I was saying, with my nautical references, the ebb is turning, beware the flood, and we'll see how that goes. But other than that, you can see the back end of the Klingon Empire is fine, nothing too crazy, but we've obviously moved various assets to be able to try and counter some of what the Romulans are doing. And then the big question is, how is this little hot spot going to resolve itself? Because little things like Fleeter Mouse pissing me off, got to sort that out and resolve those kinds of issues. But it is what it is. Speaking of that exciting stuff, let's look at the Romulans. The Romulans are overall looking pretty good. They have no threats or issues in the bottom of their territory. Ooh, I speak too soon, perhaps. There is this auxiliary battle cruiser ready to engage this Snipe B. So we'll have a little interaction there. We have, obviously, the battles that are happening on the border here, but that's well in hand with the Romulans. The issues around the area near the free transit zone, obviously a lot of bases have been destroyed there recently. We currently have a sort of a minimalist baseline going up here with a YDK at the top, YDK here, and YBS in between. We have a Mauler on its way up. I have a feeling that Mauler is going to be redirected toward the Carnivon threat because I would expect that that is the focus of their attention. We also have the Klingons taking Scintilla here in the area of the free trade zone to be able to reach out and touch in an ever so wonderful way. The exciting and delighting Romulan Empire. So that'll be exciting to watch and see. Yes. So other than that, that's it for the ROMs. Let's slide my head over to the other side, and we can talk about the back end of the Gorn. One interesting thing that happened both for the Gorn and for the ISC actually is the discovery of these little buggers. So here we have a stabilizer, size class 2 stabilizer. That's a big, probably a YDK or something like that, base station. Plus there's a number of, there's a size class 4, a slow size class 4, looks like 2 size class 3 ships. So there's a bunch of sensor readings here that indicate there's a base or something. There is also a similar one up here near the Balkans where the Remans came out of a gravity well. I have a sneaking suspicion there's one of these guys in every corner of the hex, and that's where our space people are coming from. They've built up whatever it is, and they're coming out of the woodwork, so to speak, our termites. So I have a feeling that's where all those little buggers are coming from, and so the Gorn are probably shortly going to discover and figure out what that is. But you've got my bet on the table right now. I think that's where our space people, or sea people from space, are coming from. As we scroll up, you can see that the Gorn continue to have like a good exploration activity going on in their backyard, despite being heavily committed into their war, not only with the conflict at the Wormhole, but of course north in the Balkans. But other than that, you can see they're relatively spaced out. There's not a lot of other ships floating around the back end of Gorn space, but nonetheless, things are looking good for the Gorn. Now let's talk about the faction that we haven't really spent any time talking about this turn so far, and potentially the biggest threat in the game at this point, which is the Tholians. Why are they so threatening? Well, they are the number 3 economy in the game, very close. Like, it's all really close when it comes to 1, 2, 3 at this point. They are the 2nd largest navy by numbers in the game, and they are strategically positioned in a way to heavily influence everything that's happening. They have direct access into the free transit zone and Gorn space. They have direct access into the Klingon side of the Balkans and, of course, the Gorn side as well. There's a lot of potential interaction that they can, or influence that they can exert. They are in an alliance with the Gorn and the Romulans, so obviously they're on that side, but they have yet to enter the conflict in any way, shape, or form. Now, if I'm a betting man, which maybe I am, the Tholians are in arguably one of the best positions of the game. They're at a competitive level economically and militarily. They have a very unique sort of combat advantage with pinwheels and Tholian webs. They have strategic positioning, and they have no war turns. So they can effectively wait and watch and let the Gorns and the Carnivon and the Klingons and the Romulans beat the snot out of each other, accumulate all those war turns, and cause all sorts of pain and angst for themselves. Fair. They can do that. And when the time is right, they can pull the trigger and enter the fray. Enter the fray by forcing a faction to have more war turns, forcing another faction to, for example, let's say they wanted to fight the Klingons. They can wait until, let's say, either Klingons are on the verge of victory or winning, and then they can enter the fray at that point, knowing that the Klingons have accumulated however many war turns it was to be able to get to that point, and then just drive them, knowing that they have whatever that number of war turns is as a lead against them. They can just keep fighting. They could wait until, and this would be the devious thing to do, they could wait until, let's say, the Gorn are on the cusp of losing, or the Romulans are on the cusp of losing, and then switch sides. They could then attack the Gorn. They could attack the Romulans and take territory and become the dominant economic and military power in the game. they have that flexibility and that option because they've saved their war turns for use. The spoiler for them has been, up until this point, and always will be until the trigger is pulled, the Remans and the ISC. The Remans and the ISC, as I said earlier, are the only factions in the game that have that gold medal, that trophy, that Stanley Cup of we took somebody out. They have demonstrated through competency their ability to kill other players. And they have direct access to the Tholians. The Remans are on the verge of being able to go over the top through the Lyran pocket and down through Gorn space into Tholian space. So that would be a direct channel. They also have their wormhole, which I believe is the whiskey wormhole. And then the ISC also have a wormhole. They have a wormhole to be able to get into and cause issues with the Tholians. So two different factions have direct wormhole access into Tholian space. The ISC, if they wanted to, could come through that uniform wormhole you can see in the top corner there of the Klingon Balkan area, and they could come south there as well. There are so many different avenues for attack that the ISC or the Remans could use. And they have the combined military might to do it. They've demonstrated the competency to be able to take out other players. So, what do you think they could do? I don't know. The whiskey wormhole, which is so the whiskey one is the ISC one. The November one is the Reman one. You can see here Tholian Second Fleet. Let's see. So that's reserves. That's not what I wanted. Tholian Second Fleet. Thank you. So you can see the Tholians notice and observe this threat. They're building up. They have a total of 4 wire cruisers, 5 destroyers, 4 YPCs, a couple commando ships, and some more YPCs. So they have a total of 7 YPCs there. And of course, they do have a YDK there blocking that wormhole. We've also got the November wormhole with the Third Fleet. So Tholian Third Fleet. M-era cruiser, boatload of destroyers, 6 of them, and then 6 patrol craft, all M ships, sitting there with a prime team and a Y-era cruiser. So, you know, there's stuff here all the way around. So they've got lots of opportunity. They've even got a reserve fleet. Oh, look at that. They've got a reserve counter on home fleet. Let's take a look. Tholian home fleet. Damn. Yep, they're building up 2 cruisers, 6 destroyers, 3 patrol craft, 3 Y patrol craft, 8 Y destroyers, and a cruiser, and then a boatload, 3 prime teams. Yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. They've got the reserve fleet so they can move in defense of first fleet in case I attack them. Interesting. So there's, like I said, the Tholians are in this very interesting spot where they could be the kingmaker or the spoiler, arguably, of the game and the conflict that's going on. And of course, we talked about what's going on in the Balkans. So let's have a chat. All right, so where's this game going? Where are we at? How long is it going to last? And so on, Tony. Well, we are not in a state of total war yet. We have over half the factions in the game, 4 of which are at war. The Klingons, the Carnarvon, the Gorn, and the Romulans. 4 of 7 factions are currently at war in the game. The locations or area of operations for these conflicts are scattered across the board. We have the Klingon border with the Romulans, that's one area. The Free Transit Zone, another. And then the Balkans around the Lyran Commonwealth is another. So you've got 3 clear locales of conflict or areas of operation where stuff is happening. All 4 of those factions have direct touch points to those different conflicts. There are other hotspots where things could erupt. Obviously, the Remans could get involved with what's going on around the Lyran Commonwealth. There is the option and the possibility of the Remans getting involved with the Tholians, if they get involved, or maybe just if they want to start a fight. Same thing with the ISC. The Tholians could get involved north or south of where they're going. They could try and go through a wormhole. There's all sorts of interesting options here. And like I say, points of hot spots or friction where things could erupt. But what we're seeing here is an interesting dynamic. Strange as it may seem, it's sort of similar to what's happening in real life. So in real life, of course, we have this thing that's going on in Ukraine, and we have nation states fighting each other. We also have other nation states supporting the conflict from one side or another, while at the same time dealing with friction and tension in geopolitics in other places around the world. So I'm not that I'm trying to compare our game in importance and complexity to geopolitics, but I'm just saying that it's strange how some of the same dynamics seem to be happening in this purely, entertaining war game. And so what we have here is we have potentially proxy wars happening against key opponents. I would argue that the Klingons are very much they would be an interesting metaphor for perhaps I'm not I'm not sure that's a good comparison to make. But nonetheless, we have factions in this game that are playing through other factions. And certainly the Gorn-Romulan conflict is an interesting and dynamic one. The interaction between the Gorn and the Carnivan and the Klingon fighting against those two is interesting. The sort of the wingers waiting in the wings between the Remans, the ISC, and the Tholians is so exciting. And so we're on the cusp of a total war scenario. It's much more like World War I in its ability to erupt. Now, the speed with which some of the stuff is happening is very akin to World War II. Certainly the Romulan attack on the Klingons was very Blitzkrieg-esque and good, like well done. The Romulans kicked butt and took names. So they did a great job. And it's not over. so that's going on. Where are we going to go in this game though? Let's assume two potential opportunities here. From the Romulan Klingon perspective, the Romulans pound into a bloody mulch the Klingons and take their capital and take them out of the game. If the Romulans do that because they have so few war turns, they will be an economic juggernaut. Because right now the Klingons are an economic juggernaut. They are the most economically powerful faction in the game, even after decimating 10 EP off the economy. So if that's the case, then what are the surrounding factions going to do about this rising Romulan power? They will take significant portions of Klingon territory. If the Klingons fall, will the Carnivan move to retake some of the territory that they lost in their little tussle? Will the Remans move south and try and take a foothold? Will the ISC do something? It's a possible option. Will the Gorn decide, the Romulans are getting bigger than I am. Am I going to have to move in and do something about it? Tholians will probably just sit back and laugh because they're not bordered with the Romulans. They don't have to worry about it. So interesting dynamic there. On the flip side, if the Klingons bulldoze the Romulans in response to this attack, what does that look like? Because if the Klingons take out the Romulans, they'll be, again, just like the Romulans would have been an economic powerhouse, the Klingons will be even more so, right? Because they've got the economy to start with, and then they'll take the Romulans out. So the difference will be less, but the result will be the same in the sense of, like, we're talking about a triple-digit economy, but they will be, however long that fight's going to take, they'll have incurred that many war turns. Probably there'll be huge casualties one way or the other, whether the Romulans win or the Klingons win. So their navies will be decimated, whether it's the Klingons or the Romulans. So they will be potentially vulnerable to attack from another faction. How is that going to work? I don't know. If one of those two factions is on the verge of collapse, will that be the trigger point for the other factions to get involved, the Tholians or the Remans or the IC and so on? If and when that occurs, we're at total war. And I have my judgment call on this is that we are in, as the playlist states, we're in the end game of this game. We are in the final phase of this game. I think that there is a 80% chance that at some point in the next, we'll call it 2 months, there will be a pivotal point within the next 2 months. There will be a pivotal point where the needle flips and the entire map is at war, and essentially we're going for gusto. It'll be the launch of World War I or World War II. It'll be galactic warfare at an epic scale, and everybody will be tussling and fighting. It's going to be interesting to see how that works and what the results are, because if anything, this conflict so far, especially the introduction of the Romulans, when the Romulans started to fight with the Klingons, and then the Gorn got involved, like how those different players doing what they do, it really the outcome becomes so uncertain. Don't think that just because the Tholians are big that they'll win, or that the Remans are big they'll win, or whatever. There are so many interesting things that are happening here. The composition of fleets, the way those combats are sort of washing out, the fact that one faction has better technology than the other, and so on and so forth. Like there's such an interesting dynamic here that's going on that I think it's going to be epic. And if that interests you, then please, for the next 2 months are going to be some of the most exciting episodes of this game because of the ongoing conflict and the potential of this kicking off in an epic way. So be like Paul, hit that subscribe button, make sure that you're following along so you get the latest and greatest of what's going on in this game. If you haven't already, head over to our Facebook page. Have I not put the link in the we're currently live streaming on Facebook. Let me go to the New Worlds page. There we are. And so you can head over. I'll put it in the chat right now. You can head over there and stay up to date if you're not already subscribed and checking us out on Brains will kick in at some point. If you're not already subscribed with us on YouTube, then you can also check us out there on Facebook and check out what's going on and see how things are going. That's just another way to be able to stay in touch with us and send us messages and so on. But if you really want to be involved in this community above and beyond just being a spectator, then please join us on our Discord channel. Head over to that link and away we go. And then you can join our community and engage in the conversation. Be part of potentially the next campaign when it gets started. I keep talking about campaigns, or I have talked about other campaigns, and it must feel like a pipe dream because they never materialize. I won't talk about them anymore. We have 2 campaigns ongoing. When the next campaign is ready to hit the start button, I will let you know. But we do have other campaigns in development. No more promises about when that's going to happen because it is what it is. So with that said, let's do a quick check-in with the chat and see what is going on. I see all sorts of chit-chat going on. Bill says, I sense the alpha is a bit paranoid. True indeed, Terry says. They had help from the Hydran leadership, though. Space Lens is gone, and there was much rejoicing. More correctly said, the Remans and the ISC had help from the Hydran High Command. Eugene says, is there still an R&D Romulan on the Klingon homeworld? Yes, there is. Both the Klingon and Romulan R&D teams have been taken into protective custody, as the case would be. We had an exchange to discuss whether we would continue our mutual R&D research while our war game was going on. And the Romulan response was to basically use my R&D team as prisoners. And so I responded in kind. We'll see how that goes. We'll see. Also, a Carnivon one on the Romulan homeworld. So at the moment, I think everyone is being courteous and just keeping them under arrest, not shooting them. After all, wars end. Maybe a prisoner swap? Will we take back our territory cruelly taken from us? Surely not, he says with a big smile. The Klingons are our valued allies. Yes. Given the opportunity, Dell says, in the grimdark future, there is only war. Absolutely. Terry says, Cadem facere dos cognoscet sum. I'm assuming that's Latin. Don't know what that means. Massacre them, God will know his own. I'm assuming that's the translation. Yes. Well, it's going to be very exciting to see how this all sort of trickles out in the end. I'm very interested to see how the next 2 months go. For From a cadence perspective, we've got about 2 months before our GM is going to be, we're going to be taking a little bit of a break. And probably just like a 2-week break. So basically there would be like a week or two without a live stream on this particular campaign. We'll probably catch up with our Into the Void campaign during that time and see where we're at. But the next 2 months, month and a half, 2 months are going to be very interesting as we accelerate towards global conflict. Very exciting and delighting. So with that said, I hope you have enjoyed this live stream. Thank you so much for keeping us in the double digits virtually this entire time. Very much appreciate your continued love and support with what it is that we do here. If you're catching us on the replay, again, please feel free to hit that subscribe button. We're trying to get to 500. That's the magic number for unlocking the community tab. I don't know why we don't already have it, but because there was talk about smaller channels getting it. But regardless, previous to all that chitter chatter, 500 was the magic number to unlock the community tab. We're currently at 323 at the time of this live stream. Please help us get to that magic number of 500. Tell 2 friends if you like all things strategy and Star Trek. And if you enjoy what you're watching here, then please consider heading over to our Coffee support page and joining us to be able to see what's going on. But if you're like Paul, hitting that subscribe button is wonderful enough. Thumbs up to you. With that said, thank you very much, everybody. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your weekend and day, and I will see you next week. Bye for